This will be lesson number 30 of the minor prophets, and we're going to finish up Hosea chapter 4 this morning, Lord willing. I don't see why we couldn't unless I get off track. There's just so much in chapter 4, and looking into the future, especially the next two chapters, I think we'll move through them very, very quickly. Usually, hopefully, a chapter a week now as we finish up the book of Hosea. Maybe one or two chapters out there that we will probably have to take a couple weeks on, but it should go pretty quickly from now on. So appreciate your patience, but while we're here, we may as well get as much out of it as we can. So we've been looking at, let me just drop it back here, and these are the Lord's accusations against Israel. There's no faithfulness or steadfast love and no knowledge of God in the land. That's the basis of it. If you don't have a knowledge of God in the land, and especially in a land like the northern kingdom that's supposed to be God's people, how can you know how to approach God? How can you know what you're supposed to be doing if you don't know what God expects of you? And we talked about all those areas where they were breaking the commandments, the corruption of the priests and the prophets. They had turned out to where, hey, this is a money-making proposition for us. We can do really good. And because of that, again, verse 6 and 7, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So we come to today's lesson. Hosea chapter 4, verses 12 through 14. Israel's casual flirtation with demonic spirits led to wholesale idolatry. 12 through 14. My people inquire of a piece of wood, and their walking staff gives them oracles. For a spirit of whoredom has led them astray, and they have left their God to play the whore. They sacrifice on tops of the mountains and burn offerings on the hills, under the oak, poplar, and terebinth, because their shade is good. Therefore your daughters play the whore, and your brides commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they play the whore, nor your brides when they commit adultery. For the men themselves go aside with prostitutes and sacrifice with cult prostitutes, and a people without understanding shall come to ruin. A people without understanding. What type of understanding? Well, it's a knowledge of God. And the knowledge of God, going back to a major theme. What did God do when He created the universe? And when I say He created the universe, okay, Father, Word, and Holy Spirit. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the waters. God said, the Word said, let there be light. So that took care of the darkness. There was instruction, there was knowledge, right? And the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters, and that's like the potter and the clay, like, right? Get the clay on the spinning wheel, and the hands move over and form and shape it into what the desired end vessel is. So there you have it. And when the people then go to darkness and get away from the order of God's creation, what fills that void? Chaos and confusion. All right? Kind of like we're in today, right? What our world is today. So, A casual flirtation with demonic spirits. What is a casual flirtation with demonic spirits? Most of us are probably familiar with what children were told many years ago. What were you told about Ouija boards?
Witchcraft and devilish and just evil.
So what?
Yeah.
Stay away from
Yes.
them,
Yeah.
I
right?
never was told that.
What about tarot cards?
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, what about magic 8 balls?
Or fortune telling.
Fortune tellers. Watch out for those
What's
gypsies.
those medium people that try to summon your dead, whatever.
With a seance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, now, were things like that going on in Israel? And the answer is yes. Think about King Saul. Remember, he got rid of all the familiar spirits. That's what they called them, the familiar spirits in Israel. But when Samuel died, who did he go to?
Yes.
The witch of Endor. Okay? And when she brought Samuel up, who was the biggest, who was surprised the most when that happened?
And she brought him to the king.
When if there was a crystal ball there or whatever, and she conjured up the prophet Samuel, who's the most surprised of everyone there? She was. She was, because she knew she was a fraud, right? But delving into those magic arts, those things are the beginning, okay? And that's why people who knew and understood God's will said, stay away from these things. And now what do we do? Oh boy, we make movies about it. People write books about it. Oh, it's a fun thing. Listen to this. My people inquire of a piece of wood, and their walking staff gives them oracles. Their walking staff. And how often do you see that in the scriptures where somebody's got a walking staff and it's important to them? Right?
Wasn't that kind of what?
This translated as a diviner's wand.
A diviner's wand.
Same thing.
A magician's wand. Okay? But yeah, a staff.
Like Moses had.
Mine
that.
says a wooden idol.
A wooden idol, because carved on that staff might be some type of an idol figure. And what do they do with it? Come to a crossroad. This is just a simple example. Come to a crossroad. Gee, which way should I go? I don't know. Staff, tell me which way I should go. Throw it up in the air, and when it lands, what do?
Follow the point.
It's pointing that way. Do the same with rolling dice, and that's one of the confusing things, because what happens even in the book of Acts, they cast lots to determine who's going to be the 12th apostle, who's taking Judas's place, right?
I often wondered, the lots, would that be like little dice or not? We don't really know.
I don't know. We don't know.
That could even be just a vote.
It could be, but
But
it
it
doesn't.
could be.
But it doesn't seem like it. Yeah, rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors.
But we know in this instance, and in many of those instances, it is something that has to do with idolatry and with the evil spirits. Now, even the children of Israel, well, I've talked about it before, the priest the high priest had an ephod, which was a breastplate, and it had stones in it, and those stones would glow at times. You could ask the ephod questions and get an answer. There are things that are there that we're not, at least I don't know totally the answers, but here we catch the idea of what's going on. You start fiddling, you start a casual flirtation with this stuff. Oh, this is nothing, this is just, whatever. And then all of a sudden, a spirit of whoredom leads them astray. Why? Because they get to rely on that rather than making a decision based on the knowledge that God gives. Right? The decision that Lot made, though we wouldn't say that it was one made totally by idolatry, or a flirtation even with idolatry. He didn't take his staff and throw it up in the air and it pointed to Sodom and Gomorrah, but he made a decision based upon materialism. My cattle and sheep and donkeys and all, they'll grow fat over there because the plain is well watered. See? But he didn't take into account the sin at Sodom and Gomorrah that led him to poverty. So you can catch that point. But once you start down that road, what happens? Gambling. What happens with people who gamble?
They get addicted, they can't stop.
There's more and more and more. And the deeper you get in, what? The further you go. Just gotta keep going, keep going.
That was the last thing that was on my dad's mind, right before he passed away.
Yeah.
Told my sister, get my lottery tickets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, so, anyway. So, for a spirit of whoredom has led them astray, and they left their God to play the whore. And in other words, I'm going to join myself to this idol because this idol is leading me somewhere, okay? And for an instant, it may be this idol is leading me to prosperity or to pleasure or whatever. But eventually it's going to drag them down to the depths of degradation and hell. Okay? Verse 13. They sacrifice on the tops of mountains and burn offerings on the hills. So those false gods. All right? Lord willing, next Sunday evening, we'll look at a lesson from Psalm 121 about people who have learned a lesson from this. All right? And but they burn offerings on the hills under oak, poplar, and terebinth because their shade is good. See if their shade is good.
They were gonna be comfortable while they were doing it.
They're comfortable. And shade is like darkness too, isn't it? But they sacrifice and burn offerings to the idol gods. Now what comes up, and I think I'm correct on this, Okay? And we're still, you have that casual flirtation, it's gonna grow. It's gonna drag them deeper to where then all of a sudden they're breaking more commandments of God. And their influence stretches into where they're even the most cherished parts of their lives are being destroyed. Their families. Okay? Listen to this. Therefore your daughters play the whore, and your brides commit adultery. So, all right. For a man of God, what's his most treasured? I don't really want to say possession, but I'll just use the word possession, but not as something he owns, something that's his. Wives and
Children.
family, but especially the daughters, right? Right. Always has been. Sons are great, but sons are workers, right? You want sons to work the fields. What do you want daughters for?
Get married.
To marry
And to rich people.
or other farmers. Okay. Which, in those days, in agricultural society, that could be a good thing. Understand it? Because both families become cemented together and are stronger because of the bonds. All right? But what happens if that becomes corrupted because of what's going on in these false religions?
That bond is lost. The financial gain of it is lost.
There might be financial gain there.
Well, but not the same as we were talking about, the joining of families.
Right. It's a short-term, maybe a one-time financial hit, okay? Rather than a long-term generational benefit. Okay? So what am I talking about here? And what do I believe they're talking about here? So what's going on at the Baal and Ashtoreth cults? They're fertility cults, aren't they? Right? So they got the male and female prostitutes there. So hey, you go down to the temple and you take a sacrifice with you and you have intercourse with a prostitute and your crops are going to be good, right? Because you've showed nature how to do it, how to be fruitful and multiply. All right? Well, wait a minute. Over here's farmer so-and-so or businessman so-and-so. No, I'd like to be in business with him. Okay? Wife? I've invited businessman so-and-so over tonight. Okay? You know, about halfway through dinner, I remember I've got to go get something. I forgot the dessert. Okay? How about you treat him really good so we can do business? Catch her daughter, you know, farmer so-and-so has a son, how about going over there and work your spell? Those things happen. Remember the movie Centennial, or the book and remember the ones that were about the 1880s, the ones who sang in church, the family. There's the man, the woman, and then the little boy. Remember what they were famous for singing in church, and everybody loved them, but what did they do?
He enticed these men to come.
Yeah, it was the Badger game, they called
Yeah.
it. Yeah, get a man. Well, first of all, they got the preacher, okay, and they were blackmailing the preacher, and then the businessman. But the businessman knew what was going on, and they had to kill him. And the little boy hid his body in the river. But so you see. Therefore your daughters play the whore and your brides commit adultery, but for what reason? Materialistic gain, right? So look at the rest. Now, verse 14, I will not punish your daughters when they do this. Okay? You coerced your daughter into doing this, or you coerced your wife into doing this. I'm not going to punish them for that. Why? Because they're part of the weakest of society, right? Now, will there be spiritual punishment? And the answer would be yes. Okay? Have they committed a sin if they do that? And the answer is yes.
Also,
But what choice do they have?
because that culture, you did what the man told you to do.
Yeah, they're going to be cast out, and they're going to go to prostitute. They're going to have to become prostitutes to survive. See what I'm saying here? But why won't they? Okay. The husband then cannot take the wife or the daughter down to the temple then later on and say, look, my wife has committed adultery, or my daughter has played the whore. Remember what happened with Jesus in John chapter 8? They brought a woman to it. This woman was caught in a very act. And the law says stone her. What did Jesus say? He was without sin, let him cast the first stone. So there could be forgiveness there. But for what reason? Look at that. For the men themselves go aside with prostitutes and sacrifice with cult prostitutes, and a people without understanding shall come to ruin. Huh. You force your wife, your daughter to do such things, and look what you're doing. Don't come to the Lord for judgment against them.
The man was supposed to lead.
And supposed to be the defender, protector, the head of the household, to bring them peace and prosperity. Right? Yeah. Bring them to the Lord. But where did it start? Where did it start?
Casual flirtation.
Mm-hmm. A little bit. And you can see it with the demonic spirits. And even if you want to kind of put that in there, well, can materialism be a demonic spirit?
Sure.
So just a little bit of materialism can cause us to get off track. Just a little bit of whatever can lead to, boom, this big explosion. that ends up in a mess for our families, for our nation, right? So, verse 15, step it up then from, here's the daughter, here's the bride, okay, to the nation. All right. So the father, the husband, he might say, "All right, I got caught. Here's my daughter. Here's my wife. You know, I'm charging them with these crimes. You know, what does the Lord say?" Say, well, he starts off with the demonic. But now, if he's going to charge them with these things, take them down to, if there's a place where there's a priest of the Lord, and say, my daughter's played the whore, my wife has committed adultery, stone them. No, not going to do that. All right? Now, let's up it from there to the nation. Verse 15. Though you play the whore, O Israel, let not Judah become guilty. Enter not into Gilgal, nor go up to Bethaven, and swear not, as the Lord lives. Like a stubborn heifer, Israel is stubborn. Can the Lord now feed them like a lamb in a broad pasture? So I think, you know, you're getting into that. When it's convenient, I will, when it's convenient, I will call upon the Lord and say, as the Lord lives, this needs to be done. Even though in my life, see, here before, I've had this flirtation with demonic spirits and maybe even have participated in this, all this stuff going on. But now, see, now when I want something from the Lord, I'll go down here. As the Lord lives, see, like a politician. Okay. Oh, oh brother, where art thou? He sold his soul to the devil. Yeah. He sold his soul to the devil, but what does he do? What does the politician do then when the other politician gets an opening hand? Say, they've got a boy working for them who sold his soul to the devil. That's the Lord. See what I'm saying? That whatever's convenient at the time, and when it becomes convenient to call upon the name of the Lord, what do? They call upon the name of the Lord. Okay? Though you play the whore, O Israel, let not Judah become guilty. That reminds me of the old song. It's been covered several times, but Elvis covered it, right? Little sister, don't do what your big sister done. Right? Judah, don't do what Israel's doing. Don't do it. Israel's going to be destroyed. Judah, don't do it. Judah, don't you go up to Gilgal, okay? Or do not enter into Gilgal, nor go up to Bethaven, and swear not as the Lord lives. Hey, don't fall into this pattern, okay? Why? Because Israel, like a stubborn heifer, that's what Israel is. They're stubborn. They just go to those idols. And look, if you have a dozen idols here, and you have the Lord's worship here, Yahweh, and you hit all the rounds, and then you hit over here with Yahweh, how do I want to phrase this so it comes out properly? Okay? All right. So, all right. In a big city, all right? Over here you got a Walmart that's got a grocery store. Over here you got a United that has a grocery store. Over here you've got a, what are some of the others? A Safeway. Do they have Safeways anymore?
Wiggly.
You got a Piggly Wiggly. You got, how many? You got 12 grocery stores, big ones, nice ones, okay? And you say, my favorite you shop at every one of them, but you say, my favorite is whatever. But you shop at all of them. But blank is my store. That's kind of relative, isn't it? Because you shop at all of them. So if you've got a dozen places of worship and one of them is Yahweh, and you say, well, I worship at all of them, but my favorite is Yahweh. It's kind of irrelevant, isn't it? Or relative? Yeah, I like Baal. I go over there and I take a sacrifice over to Baal now and then, and one over to Asherah now and then, but you know, my favorite, especially when things are going bad and, you know, well, when Yahweh's giving me the things that I want, Yahweh's my favorite. But when Baal's giving me the things that I want, Baal's my favorite. I don't know if that's a good example, but go ahead, say it again.
It's so prevalent today. We go where we hear what we want to hear, or we associate with people who say what we want to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then if you say, well, I want to go where I hear the Bible taught, and if they follow the Bible, that's just your opinion of following the Bible, because most people don't even understand, have no concept of what the Bible truly teaches. Because some of those Baal worshipers, they got no problem coming over here and worshiping Yahweh now and then, especially if it's fellowship meal afterwards.
It's kind of some of the other denominations, they go to those ones because they want to be entertained or fed. They don't really seek the word, they just want to be entertained. That kind of relates to that.
A lot of it is that, because they think it is entertainment. I watched some videos of a congregation, a group nearby where we live, to see what they taught. And the guy just told why he started his own church. That was it. This is why I started my church, because somebody told me this or that, and I didn't agree with what he did and the way he started his church, so I just started my own church. And people go, amen, brother. Preach on, brother. Get away. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Well, but for Israel, the northern kingdom, because they had no knowledge of God or did not retain the knowledge of God, they had no problem. They had no problem with those. And again, it started with that casual flirtation and just worked its way up to this point, starting in verse 7. Well, the stubborn heifer deal, what we come from an area where there's a lot of dairy farms around, okay? My sister and brother-in-law had a dairy farm, but, the younger cows, the heifers, they're a problem, right? The older cows, you go out and you holler, "Sukaf" or whatever, and they just come up because they know it's time to eat and be milked.
They even know their own place in the milking barn.
And what time, who gets milked first and everything, they know. But those heifers, they don't know. It takes a while. They get trained, but those older cows, now they know when. And that's kind of the connection that's made here. Israel didn't grow up. They didn't grow in a knowledge of the Lord to be fully mature. Judah don't make the same mistake. See the connection there? So, it starts out with a casual flirtation, and then what happens? Look at verse 17. Ephraim is joined to idols. Leave him alone. Whoa. Leave him alone. Why leave him alone?
Don't be influenced by.
What? That's true, Judah. Don't be influenced. But Judah, have nothing to do with them, Judah. That
The blind leads the blind. That's what Matthew 15:14, when it's,
okay.
yeah.
So that's one of the cross references?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. But I've got a little different interpretation of it. Okay? Because they are joined to idols, leave them alone. What happens when God says, leave somebody alone?
Don't associate with them. Don't associate with them.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a higher meaning?
They're going to end up, this says in Matthew 15:14, they'll end up in the ditch.
Okay. So leave them alone. Don't even try to change them. But let's go back. Let's go back. Okay? God judges nations in time and people in eternity. Ephraim is joined to idols. Leave Ephraim alone. Ephraim is a nation representing the whole of the northern kingdom. Is that going to change? Is there any hope that the northern kingdom is going to survive this judgment? No. Judah don't do the same thing. Do they? To a degree. To a degree. But that's for the later minor prophets to look at. So, Ephraim is joined to idols, leave him alone. When their drink is gone, they give themselves to whoring. Their rulers dearly love shame. So what did the rulers do? Instead of saying, we better repent and turn to Yahweh, what did they do? Stronger ties with the idols and stronger ties to the nations. Assyria. Assyria, help us with Syria. They become a vassal state of Assyria, and then they say, Syria, help us against Assyria. And they get the other little states like Edom and Moab and Philistia and all. Hey, let's join. Let's go against Assyria. Judah, help us. And Judah says, we're not getting in this fight. So what do? We talked about it before. They attack Judah. Okay? So, let me see what I got here. They're married to idols. Leave them alone. Okay. Wow, I've got... Yeah. All right. All right. When their drink is gone, they give themselves... When they can't fend for themselves, they go to these other nations for help. Their rulers dearly love shame. Okay. Boy, this really hits to today. What happens when your leaders have to go to other countries and beg them for help?
Embarrassment.
You're at their mercy.
You take care of me and I'll take care of you.
And they're proud of the shame they bring upon a nation. Verse 19. A wind has wrapped them in its wings. Wrapped who? Well, the nation because of its leaders. And they shall become ashamed because of their sacrifices, because they've sacrificed these idols. Now they're sacrificing the wealth of their nation to these other nations to protect them, when the Lord would have protected them if they had just repented and gone back to the Lord.
In the first place.
They shall be ashamed because of their sacrifice. So they sacrificed to the idols, then they sacrificed their treasure, and then now they're going to sacrifice their people.
Once you get started down that road, it's easy to look back and see it. As you're going down that road, once you get started going forward, it's not that easy to see.
Well,
In
this will
hindsight,
do
it
it.
is.
This will do it. This is what's going to help. This is what's going to make us stronger. This is what's going to make us more. This will make us loved in the world, right? Or at least for them geographically in the area. This is how we'll take care. Here's the, boy, can we put it in the terms of today, since Marxism has arisen? Assyria is the ascending power. So we've got to go against the power, and we're the oppressed. So if we, the oppressed, all hang together and we go against the power, boy, we can change everything, and that's kind of the way it is. Well, who's the power that they've been fighting against for the last, 100 years? It's us. The United States of America. They were all fighting against us, and turning around, now we ourselves are fighting against us.
You have to,
They'll love us if we become like that. If we become poor and a third world country like them, they'll love us. No, they won't. No, they won't.
if that happens, we cannot buy our friends then. If we do,
We can't buy them now.
we try. We try. We can't, but we try.
They don't want our dollars. Our dollars are worthless now. They don't want our treasury bonds. We can't get rid of them. What? It's so ridiculous what's going on in the world. And these people, they're like, they got these blinders on.
What I was gonna say, what I said about, it's easy to see it looking back, but not so easy to see it looking forward. Talking about what's going on here that we're studying, if it's applicable to today, but looking at this, that statement I made is true if you knew the Lord in the first place.
Mhm.
If you didn't know Him, that's where the crowd's going, let's go see what they're doing. But it centers around knowledge of God's Word
Yeah.
as to the difficulty of seeing it going forward. It's easy to see it going back.
And if you take it in the terms of Western civilization, all right, which Europe as the Northern Kingdom of Israel, the United States as the Southern Kingdom of Judah, little sister, don't do what your big sister's done. Look at what Europe is facing now because of what they've done with this Marxist globalist agenda. And they're trying hard to bring it here or make us a part of it. And you're going to have people freezing to death this winter. You're going to have people starving to death this winter. There is a threat of nuclear war in Ukraine right at this time. Why do we want to be like that? Why do our leaders want us to be like that? Why do our leaders want us involved in that? Because they don't know what the Lord, they don't know the Lord, they don't know order, they know chaos and confusion. And boy, we are in a time of chaos.